everybody, good morning, welcome back to my sofa, welcome back to my studio, welcome back to my big pink sofa. It's absolutely lovely to have you here with me again. I'll just get myself arranged for you, and yes, welcome back, and a brand new welcome to you if it's your very first time here. Thank you so much for joining me. It's absolutely wonderful that I'm connecting with all of you wherever you are in the world. It's an absolute joy to share what I'm doing and to welcome you to my studio. It's just absolutely fabulous, isn't it? To quote somebody famous. Not sure where that comes from. Anyway, so today I'm back in my studio, and I was just sitting here for a moment before I started filming, thinking about how I love being in here because it's my space. Nobody else comes in here and touches anything or moves anything. You know, in the house, there's always stuff going on, and you might just organise a corner somewhere and get it all nice how you want it, and then somebody else comes along and uses something or does something, and that's lovely. That's called family life. But what I love down here is a breath of fresh air, because I just come in here and nothing's moved since I came in here yesterday, and that's just so lovely. It's very relaxing, and I can sit here on my sofa and I can look around at all my things, and I can think about what I'm going to be doing next, and I can relax. And I think being relaxed is really so important. And having things around you that you love and that you find joyful, that's really important, isn't it? Because we all live in different circumstances, and we all have different things going on, but finding a little bit of joy for yourself, I think that's so important. And actually this morning I found a little video clip about Sandra Rhodes, the famous designer. She's just an amazing person. I'm sure most of you will have come across her at some time. She's still this incredible, dynamic, vibrant, authentic person. She just absolutely does everything her own way. And it was a little tour of her penthouse, and it's just full of all of her creativity. It's full of her wallpaper and her textile designs and all of her colours. And she's sitting there wearing this fantastic pink outfit with big pink like trainers on, and she's just incredible. And I just thought I wouldn't want to live in that. That would drive me mad. But I appreciated that it was all about her, and it was all about her expressing herself and being totally authentic to herself, and she's lived her life like that. And she didn't set out to become this incredible famous person, but she became so, and she mixed with all these other creative souls, all these other artists and photographers and I don't know, whatever else, ceramicists. And I just love that she's expressed that in her life. And I think so many of us get that kind of squashed down, don't we? Especially in school. There's all of this pressure to go out into the world and earn money and succeed and do whatever it is, or marry and have children, or whatever it is society thinks we should be doing. And I just think really we've got to let all of that go now and just let people be themselves. Just be yourself, and if you're finding time for yourself now at any stage of your life, wherever you are in your life, because I mean for me creativity came relatively late compared to say kids at school going off and doing stuff straight away from school. I came to it sort of in my 30s, and I had a baby, and it's been this really interesting journey. But yeah, so anyway, Sandra Rhodes, just totally, her penthouse just is an expression of her. And I suppose that's what it's like for me down here, is this is full of me and it's full of my stuff. But I didn't always have this. I once upon a time worked in a caravan when we were doing our house up. I may have said this, I'm sure I've said this to people before. I had 2 boxes of fabric and a sewing machine in one of our tiny little caravans that we were living in, and that enabled me to do something. And I actually was going to college at that time as well. I was working for part of it, but also I went to college to start my degree course in creative things, and somehow I found a way to do that, and it's been this incredible journey so far. It ain't over yet. It just gets better and better, and having you here is what makes it fantastic at the moment, so thank you. So last week we were playing around with those fabrics. The colours are just incredible. I would never have thought to put those colours together, but somehow intuitively through playing with the fabrics, that's what's come together, and we've got so far with it. I'm going to show you where I've got to. I've done a lot more embellishing since last week. It's been a slow process, and I'll show you where I'm up to now. So come and join me. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so here we are. This is what it's looking like now. I've done loads of embellishing, and I've just been following my intuition for the layout of this, the composition of this, and it's quite strange really, because it's become very, very simple.
it seems to have this beautiful diagonal line of the yellow kind of cutting through these other colours as though it's sort of parting the ways. And it's got this very, very dark and very light, and the whole thing is kind of singing. It's peculiar because I wasn't expecting it to be like this at all. I didn't have any expectations, but this is where it's at now. So the next thing to do is some stitching into it, and I need to attend to my edges up here and down here. I need to get those folded in, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pin those, and I'll be choosing some threads as well. I've got a couple more little patches here where I've got little bits that have, you know, there's little gaps. So I've just pinned a few pieces on, which I'll get those embellished down as well, and then we'll get some stitching into it. I'm kind of blown away because of its simplicity. It's not become anything in particular. I'd be really interested to have your comments on it. So I'm just going to keep processing it, and we'll see how it ends up and what it looks like at the end. I think the colours are stunning, and the simple composition of it allows those colours to really stand out, and I think you can probably read into it whatever you want to. This is my second abstract piece this year, and I'm really quite intrigued by it. Okay, so what I've done, as you can see, I've embellished those pieces down, and I've also got myself a piece of the tearaway stabilizer, which I'm going to put onto the back, which means when I'm stitching, if you're not familiar with these things, if I just stitch that, it's likely to get a bit sort of scrumpled up and lose some of its shape and shrink in a lot more. But if I use the stabilizer, which is kind of a papery stuff, that means it'll hopefully hold its shape more. So I'm going to look for these threads. I've pulled out a few green ones here, and I'm just feeling what I want to put on there. What I do is I just pull the thread out and I have a little look-see and see which one I fancy. So I'm just feeling, none of them's absolutely 100% perfect. That's just how it is. You've just got to use what you've got, haven't you? It's no good. I haven't got any local shops anymore selling threads, sadly. There used to be a lovely little sewing shop in town, but that's gone because I think everybody buys online these days. But really, when you're buying threads, don't you think you really need to see the colours with your own eyes? So we'll have a little look at those. So that's some possible greens, and let's look at the yellows. Oh, I think it has to be that one. I'm just kind of matching them in because I really want these colours to be quite pure and clean. And as you will have noticed, those with hawk eyes amongst you and a good memory, I haven't used these at all. These just weren't what I wanted in the end. These were like a decoy or a red herring. I love them. I think they're great colours and they look really great together. Maybe I'll make something else with them, but this piece was just saying, nope, I want to be really, really simple. Everything's very simple. Everything's very clean and clear with this piece. It's just simplicity. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to see, and it's also a question of what I've got the most of, because once you start stitching you do need quite a lot of thread. That's a possibility. I've got plenty of that one. I think that's probably going to be the one. Let's just have a look. It's looking more and more like a map, actually, isn't it? It's kind of like a map, and these are, I don't know, these are something being put on top of the map. So I really need another really dark blue. I'll just get my blues out. Here's my big box of luscious blue threads. These are all my dark ones. I find it really helpful having all your threads in one place. It's like having your fabrics in a box. It just helps keep you, it's much easier then to pick things out and go yes, no, yes, no. And then I'll put these into a little pot. I don't think there's another. That's a bit, not quite. Oh, that one might be better. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for now. And I think of these two threads, I think it might be that one. That's kind of got a slightly different hint to it. I think we'll opt for this one. Comes a point you have to make a choice, so that's 1 and 1, and I think we're going to go for those, partly because I've got most of those. Sometimes what you've got, it just helps, doesn't it? If that's all you've got, that's your choice then, isn't it? And you have to kind of run with it and live with it. Like in life, if my mum used to say, you have to cut your coat according to your cloth. If you haven't got it, you haven't got it. You have to make do and mend and get creative with what you have got. Right, I think that's the sort of shade to go with. It's nice and light and bright, and I think I've got plenty of it. I'll put those to one side, and then you see what I'll do is I'll get my little pot and I just pop these in. And I just think they look so sweet. They look so nice together. It's like this, but in a little mini version of it. So let's get over and start some stitching. Oh no, the first thing to do, actually, no, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get ahead of yourself, Emma. I need to pin this onto the backing and make sure it's going to sit. So I need to pin this onto the backing here. You can see how wonky I've cut the backing, but it doesn't matter because as long as it's going to roughly match up and a little bit extra. I always cut a little bit extra of this and then I can trim it down afterwards. So let's get some pins and just pin it on. And this will help keep it all in place while I'm doing the stitching. And it's quite daunting starting off stitching something quite as big as this. I'm working big again. For me, this is quite big. But I just love it. Once I get stitching, I can forget everything. Everything else goes out the window. All the things I should be doing. All the little chores and jobs. It's great therapy. So let's go to the sewing machine now. Okay, so I'm going to turn this rough looking surface now into something completely different using my free machine embroidery. Now, it's going to be really not very exciting to watch, so I'll probably just do a little bit. So, if you're new to free machine embroidery, I've got a nice little video on my beginners playlist if you want to go and have a look at that to see how you get started with this. It's really very simple, and you let the machine do all the work. You set it up with your darning foot. I tend to lower my top tension, but that's just personal to my machine. And there'll be something underneath that allows you to lower your dog feed. Your dog feed teeth? Your teeth. I never get this right. The dog teeth feed, you know, where your little dog teeth are underneath. I don't know why they're called dog teeth, really. They're very small. And just, I let the machine run and I go faster than you might think. You're not going to see much because it's pink on pink. Slowly but surely it's going to flatten the surface, and I love how each stitch makes a difference, if you like. Each stitch I put in makes a difference to the surface, it changes it, and the light catches on the threads as we stitch them. I think it looks really cool. So I'm going to get on with this and I'll show you it when I'm further down the line. Unless you really want to fall asleep watching me stitching. So I'm just busy changing up threads. I've got this lovely bright yellow to go at now. So you can see, hopefully, and possibly if I rub my fingers on it, you can hear that I've stitched all of that. And I want to get some of this held down now because obviously the edges are quite important to do. And I was just sort of thinking here, how crazy I am really. I'm just doing all of this. It's, you know, to some people this would seem incredibly monotonous, just to sit here stitching, but I'm finding it really joyful. And it would be very, very easy to be totally overwhelmed when I see I've got to stitch all of this with these tiny little stitches and I'm going round and round and round. It could be easy to be sort of overwhelmed by that, but what I'm trying to do is, like I did with the embellishing, I'm trying to just focus on the little area that I'm doing and not let my head go, oh my goodness, you've still got all of that to do. I'm just focusing in on getting this bit done, and I'm really quite interested to see, sorry, I'll just go into here and pull that through. I'm really quite fascinated to see how it's all going to work out. I've obviously got to get the edges as neat as I can, but what I'm looking at the moment, and I don't know whether you can see that, but I'm interested in how the light is affecting these quite shiny fabrics that I've put down, and because they're all put down in different angles, the light falls on them in different ways. So again, I think at the moment my work is so much about light and dark, and this is very much something that's been of interest to me since I started doing free machine embroidery, really, is how the stitch affects the surface of what you do. You know, whether you're just making a texture with your stitching, whether you're just making a line that defines something. So if you're drawing seed heads or, you know, hillsides, the stitch is so versatile, isn't it? That's what makes the piece for me. It's all about the stitching. So I'm going to get on with this now. I tell you what, you can't think about anything else while you're doing this. You've got to just really focus on what you're doing, and it's so lovely to do. So although I'm using a sewing machine to do this, as you can see, the process itself is quite slow. Down these edges in particular. Once I get more into the middle, I can go a bit quicker. And I'm working, as usual, I'm working from one side of the piece to the other. It's very important that you work with your fabric and push the fabric down. It's the same when you're doing quilting, or yeah, I suppose quilting is the main comparison with this. To make sure the fabric doesn't ruckle up, you've got to work from one side to the other, quite methodically, really. You can't just go random and shove it in, unless you don't mind that it's all ruckled up. That's fine. Sometimes that's what you want. Okay, so goodness me, this is where I have got to with this now. I've done loads and loads of stitching, and I'll show you on the back where we've got to. Let's just turn it right over, actually, because I think it's quite fascinating to see it on the back. It's like a ghostly version of what's going on the front. I think there's still a little bit of stitching to do, and you can see I've done quite a lot around these edges, which I find quite interesting how that's tied, pulled it all in, pulled each edge in. And you can see around here I've still got a little bit more to do, so I'll just flip that back over. So I'm fascinated by this. It is on the surface, it's a really very simple piece because it's made of only four colours, very simple shapes. Obviously it's got some, you know, raggedy edges. I've been fascinated about how I've managed to actually pull these loose, rough edges and turn them into something really quite smooth. I really like the way that they sort of butt up to each other, and you kind of get one kind of almost folding in underneath the other one. It's a bit like, somebody was talking about maps, all sorts of, so somebody was talking about it being like a map, a couple of people, and it's almost like plate tectonics where the plates kind of fold over each other. And what else? I like the way that the light falls on it. There's these lovely shiny bits on this green. Every fabric that I've used, I think apart from the yellow is quite matte, but these fabrics have all got a slight sheen to them. They started off as shiny fabrics and they've retained some of that, and depending on which angle the fabric has been laid down at, because they're all overlaying and overlapping and they're going in different directions. We've got different, you know, effects of the light on the surface. That's really lovely. So as I say, it's what looks like a very simple piece, and I just don't quite know where it's going to go next. I feel as though I think we're not finished with it. We've obviously got some work to do on it, just to get the actual. We've obviously got to do some work still on it to get some of the stitching finished and get these edges tied in, which I will get on with. But I'd be really fascinated to hear what you think of it so far, what it says to you, if anything, whether you like it or you don't like it. Please let me know. I'm really fascinated to get other people's opinions on all of my work, because it really kind of feeds into it, and I love to have a conversation about it and a discussion. And I'd be really interested to know what you would do with this piece next. If you were going to finish this off and do something else with it, what would you do with it? So do let me know in the comments below, because I think that would be fascinating to see what your view would be on that. So we'll see where it's going to take us next time, and I will say cheerio for now, and I will see you again next week in my studio, and we'll find out what's going to happen next. Bye for now.
Ba ba da ba 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 ba.